Chapter 15. Chad's Close Call. Ben, they're out, Jake went on harshly. I seed one on them on the hill. Come down this way, he did. There was the sound of a match being scratched, then an exclamation of surprise. Why, he ain't here. Chad didn't quite see why Ben should have been there, yet evidently Jake had expected him to be. Perhaps Ben had remained to watch the adit, in which case Jake would probably come through to the mouth in order to look for him. That thought wasn't a pleasant one, but it was too late now to do anything about it, so Chad made himself as small as he could and crouched down in the corner behind the boards. Then the inner door opened. Chad was not easily scared, but now he was fairly shaking. For if this long fellow spotted him, the last hope was gone for Jan and Clive. They might stay down in that black prison till they starved. Ben, came Jake's voice again. He was angry now. Drat the fellow, he growled. Why can't he do what he says he'll do? He came right across to the opening and thrust his candle through. Ben, he shouted once more. Chad gave up hope of escaping notice. He was on the point of springing up, knocking the candle out of Jake's hand and making a rush for it, when Jake turned away. He ain't here either, the man growled. Fat-headed fool. He'll hear what I thinks of him afore he's much older. Chad could hardly believe his senses. Somehow the man had failed to see him, and now was going back into the outer room. He was still grumbling and muttering angrily. The question was, what would the man do next? And Chad listened with quivering eagerness. He had not long to wait, for he distinctly heard Jake go out, slamming the door behind him. Even then, Chad dared not move. He waited for the longest 5 minutes he had ever known before he dared to creep out of his muddy hiding place, and no cat ever crossed a room more carefully than he. He peeped out of the door. The rain had nearly stopped, and it was less dark than it had been. Then a flicker of lightning along the horizon showed a tall figure striding down towards the swollen brook. Chad waited no longer. Carrying the rope, he was out and off up the hill. Afraid that the lightning might betray him, he ducked and dodged from one clump of heather to another, but saw no more either of Jake Treslove or Ben Grint, and reached the mouth of the shaft in safety. It was worth all he had gone through to hear the joy in Clive's voice as the rope went snaking down into the depths. You first, Clive, Chad said. Then you and I together can haul Jan up. And hurry. Jake's somewhere down by the brook, but I haven't a notion where Ben is. There was no great difficulty in getting Clive up, for he was a lightweight. It was a much harder job to pull up Jan's 11 stone. But somehow they did it, and Jan's gratitude was not the least of Chad's reward. By this time, all three were so exhausted they had to rest before doing anything else, so they found a big rock and sat under it. While they got back their breath and their strength, Chad told them of his visit to the mine house and how he had got the rope. Jolly good work, asked Clive warmly. Ain't no doubt about that, Jan added. Next thing is to get home, Chad said. I wish I knew where Ben was. He's the one I'm afraid of. I reckon him gone across hill to the other adit, Jan thought thoughtfully. Looks to me best thing us can do is keep down into valley and follow brook. Her runs into Badger Brook. All right, Jan, said Chad. You know the country, so you'd better lead. Let's push along. They got down into the valley without seeing anything of their enemies, and went on as fast as they could, but the stream was over its banks and the bogs full of water, and the going was so bad that they were driven up the slope again. It was lucky that Jan knew the moor, for alone the boys would have been hopelessly lost. At last Jan stopped beside a streamlet which ran swiftly down the hill. I reckon us have covered the worst of it, he said. Another mile and us ought to reach Badger Brook. Clive caught Jan by the arm. Someone's coming, he whispered. Jan did not waste a moment. He pointed to the deep bed of the brook. Get down in there, he ordered, and all three slipped over the bank and stood knee-deep in cold, swiftly running water. Next minute, two figures showed up against the night sky. Ben and Jake, Chad whispered, as he ducked below the bank. Don't talk. They may hear us. For a nasty moment, Chad thought they had heard. So straight did the two men come towards the place of hiding, But as Chad peered over the rim of the bank, he saw that this was not the case. They were simply picking the easiest way through a lot of rough heather and rocks. As they came, they were talking. "If we don't find 'em," Jake said, "I'm going to bunk." "Don't be a fool," Ben retorted. "What's the use of talking that way? It don't matter what they do or where they go. We're bound to get 'em."